in 2026. The most dangerous skill is the one you're relying on right now. This line is designed to immediately destabilize certainty. Most people assume that if a skill worked yesterday, it will protect them tomorrow. That assumption is now a liability. The video works because it attacks comfort, not competence. When you say, if you don't develop this one ability, your career, income, and relevance will slowly disappear. You are not predicting a dramatic collapse. You are describing a silent erosion. That's what makes it powerful. People don't usually fail overnight. They fade, they get replaced quietly. They wake up one day and realize the market no longer needs what they offer. This video creates urgency without panic. It reframes the threat as time-based, not talent-based. The listener starts asking, is the skill I'm proud of actually becoming outdated? That question forces attention. Most hooks try to impress. This one unsettles. It implies that doing nothing is a decision and a costly one. By starting with loss, career, income, relevance, you trigger the brain's natural loss avoidance response, which is far more powerful than motivation. At this moment, the viewer is primed to listen because their identity feels at risk. Why most skills are dying jobs are being automated not in theory but in reality. Tasks that once required years of experience are now handled by software in seconds. This doesn't mean people are useless. It means static roles are. If your value is tied to repetition, predictability, or routine decision-making, you're competing with systems that never get tired, never ask for raises, and never stop learning. Platforms are also changing the rules overnight. Creators lose reach. Businesses lose traffic. Professionals lose relevance. What worked last year suddenly stops working, and most people respond with frustration instead of adaptation. They blame the platform, the economy, or technology itself, rather than questioning their dependency on a single system. Degrees are losing relevance for the same reason. A qualification proves you were competent at one point in time. The market now rewards people who can become competent repeatedly. Knowledge has an expiration date, and formal education rarely updates fast enough to match reality. That's why the real problem isn't AI is just an accelerant. The real problem is rigid thinking, the refusal to update beliefs, identities, and strategies. People don't lose because they lack intelligence. They lose because they cling to outdated certainty in a world that no longer rewards it. The skill that survives everything, the skill that survives every technological shift, every market collapse, and every industry reinvention is adaptive thinking. Adaptive thinking is not about being fast or reactive. It is about being mentally reconfigurable. When conditions change, you do not freeze, panic, or double down on what used to work. You update your model of reality. Defined simply, adaptive thinking is the ability to learn, unlearn, and reconfigure your thinking faster than the world changes. Most people only focus on learning. Very few are willing to unlearn. And almost no one actively reconfigures how they think. That is why they get trapped by their past success. Adaptive thinkers don't ask, how do I protect what I know? They ask, what does this new reality require from me? This skill works in every domain: career, business, relationships, and personal growth because it operates at the thinking level, not the skill level. Tools change, platforms die, industries rotate. But the person who can repeatedly adapt their mental framework never becomes obsolete. That is why adaptability isn't just another skill. It is the meta skill, the one that determines how valuable every other skill becomes over time. Why this skill beats talent, IQ, and hustle. Talent is fragile. It works best in stable environments where the rules stay the same long enough for talent to shine. But when the rules change, talent without adaptability becomes irrelevant. History is full of gifted people who failed because the world moved on and they didn't. Hustle leads to burnout. Working harder on the wrong strategy doesn't create success, it creates exhaustion. Hustle without adaptive thinking traps people in effort instead of progress. They grind, but they don't evolve. Intelligence becomes outdated without flexibility. High IQ helps you solve problems, but adaptive thinking helps you choose the right problems to solve. Without flexibility, intelligence just optimizes obsolete systems. This is why adaptability beats everything else. Adaptability compounds, Everything else expires. A talented person who can't adapt peaks early. A hard worker who can't adapt burns out. A smart person who can't adapt becomes arrogant and stuck, but an adaptive thinker keeps upgrading. They don't attach their worth to being right. They attach it to staying relevant. Over time, this creates exponential advantage not because they are superior, but because they evolve while others resist change. What adaptive thinking looks like in real life: adaptive thinking is visible in behavior, not words. It looks like pivoting without ego. When something stops working, you don't defend it emotionally. You don't say, "This is who I am." You say, "This no longer works. What's next?" There is no identity crisis because your identity isn't attached to one strategy. It looks like making decisions with incomplete information. Adaptive thinkers don't wait for perfect clarity. They act, observe feedback, and adjust. They understand that speed of correction matters more than initial accuracy. It looks like staying calm under uncertainty. While others panic, adaptive thinkers stay composed because uncertainty is familiar territory. They expect change. They are not shocked by it. This leads to a deeper identity shift. You stop protecting who you were and start building who you're becoming. Instead of defending past choices, you design future versions of yourself. Instead of chasing stability, you build resilience. This mindset allows you to move forward without fear of starting over, because starting over no longer feels like failure. It feels like alignment. The 3 core subskills adaptive thinking is not abstract. It is built on 3 concrete subskills. First, rapid learning. This means learning without emotional attachment. Most people struggle to learn because new information threatens their existing beliefs. Adaptive thinkers treat learning as a temporary state, not an identity. They adopt what works, discard what doesn't, and move on without resentment. Speed matters more than mastery at the start. Second, identity detachment. This is the ability to not define yourself by past roles, titles, or success. When your identity is tied to who you were, growth feels like betrayal. Adaptive thinkers see identity as fluid. They are willing to become beginners again because their self-worth is not anchored to status. Third, strategic reframing. Failure is not personal, it is informational. Adaptive thinkers extract data instead of damage. They ask, "What is this teaching me?" instead of, "What does this say about me?" Together, these 3 subskills create mental resilience. They allow you to evolve continuously without emotional exhaustion. This is the foundation of long-term relevance. Why most people will fail to develop this skill: most people won't fail because they lack opportunity. They will fail because of psychological resistance. The first barrier is ego. Ego wants to be right, not effective. It resists feedback because feedback threatens self-image. When ego leads, people defend outdated beliefs instead of updating them. The second barrier is comfort. Comfort creates routines, and routines create identity. Change feels dangerous not because it's hard, but because it destabilizes familiarity. People would rather tolerate dissatisfaction than risk uncertainty. The third barrier is fear of starting over. Starting over feels like admitting failure even when it's the smartest move. So people stay stuck, not because they can't move, but because moving feels humiliating. This is why the line matters. Most people don't fear change. They fear losing who they think they are. They fear losing respect, certainty, and the story they tell themselves. Adaptive thinking requires letting go of outdated self-concepts, and most people would rather stay obsolete than feel temporarily lost. The people who will win in 2026? The winners of 2026 are not the most talented or the most hardworking. They are the most mentally flexible. They are systems thinkers, not emotional thinkers. Instead of reacting to events, they understand structures, incentives, and patterns. They don't personalize outcomes, they analyze them. They are fast learners, not stubborn experts. Experts protect their reputation, learners protect their growth. When new information appears, learners adapt, experts argue. These people operate on a different mental model. They don't chase certainty, they build adaptability. They expect instability. They design their lives around optionality, not guarantees. They invest in skills that transfer across industries, not titles that expire. While others wait for clarity, they move with calculated uncertainty. While others cling to the past, they redesign the future. Their advantage is not luck. It is mindset architecture. They win because they evolve faster than the environment demands, and that gap is where opportunity lives. How to start today? Adaptive thinking begins with deliberate action. Step 1. Question 1. Belief you've never challenged. Ask yourself, what do I assume is true simply because it once worked? This breaks unconscious rigidity. Step 2. Learn one new skill every 90 days. Not for mastery, for exposure. This trains your brain to become comfortable with beginner status. Learning speed matters more than depth early on. Step 3. Detach your identity from outcomes. You are not your results. Results are feedback, not verdicts. When outcomes don't define you, experimentation becomes safe and growth accelerates. This framework isn't about massive change. It's about continuous reconfiguration. Small adaptations compound into strategic advantage. Start imperfectly. Adjust relentlessly. That is the process. Identity lock in the future won't reward what you know. It will reward how fast you can change. Skills will expire. Industries will rotate. Certainty will continue to vanish. The only sustainable advantage is the ability to adapt without breaking your confidence. This is not motivation. This is reality. If you build adaptive thinking, you don't fear disruption, you leverage it. You don't panic during change, you capitalize on it. You don't cling to relevance, you recreate it. End with this truth. This is the skill that decides who survives the next decade and who gets left behind. Not because the world is cruel, but because it is dynamic. And only those who evolve with it will remain valuable.